Hi, I'm Ann with Clinton Parkway Nursery, and we're doing a series of workshops on YouTube for this season so that you'll be safe and you can listen to them whenever you want at home. We're at the corner of Clinton Parkway and Wakarusa in Lawrence, Kansas. So if you're driving by, look for the flowers on the roof. That's kind of our trademark. Good morning, or afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this. It could be evening. Hey, this is Ann at Clinton Parkway Nursery, and today I'm going to talk about warm season vegetables. This will be ones that like it warm. You know, the things you don't plant really until at least Mother's Day, because they don't take a frost. They like the soil warm. It's a lesson in patience, and everyone wants to push it, but the more patient you are, the better results you'll have, I think, and the quicker they'll do well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about beans, cucumbers, herbs, and then I'm going to talk about melons, and then okra, peppers, and squash. So I'm going to talk about each one for a little bit, so if there's one you don't want to hear, you can just bleep it and go forward to the next one. So the first one is going to be beans, like green beans or lima beans, whatever. Those will be planted from seeds on that, and they come up when the soil's warm. They'll come up in 3 days on that. So the beans, what you'll do is you'll plant them about 2 inches deep and put them about 4 inches apart. They'll come up really fast. They are a legume, which they have the ability to take nitrogen from the atmosphere and utilize it, but yet they will benefit immensely from fertilizing. All of these plants, if you listen to the beginning vegetable garden, we talk a lot about soil prep. The better the soil, the better these guys are going to do. So I'm assuming that you have really good soil, or you're working on that soil, because you're always working on that soil. So, but you'll plant them about 2 inches deep, about 4 inches apart. They'll come up. Try to get them as big as you possibly can before they bloom, because they're not going to grow a lot after they get done blooming. They're going to start in the reproductive mode and just bloom, and produce green beans. So, if the bigger you get them before that starts, then the bigger the plant is, the more blooms it has, the more fruit it has. So that's kind of your green beans. The next thing is cucumbers, and I'm going to kind of consolidate. Cucumbers, squash, and melons all plant. You can buy the seeds, but you can plant them very easily from seed. You'll read and it'll say hill them up. You'll take the soil and make a little mound, about like this and about like this. The reason they do that is, well, number one, it's loose soil, but also because it sets up so it warms up faster. Again, they like warm weather. And so just take your fingers and go like this in the ground, and that's where you'll put the seeds. Put 3 seeds in a hill. Again, if it's nice weather, they'll come up very, very fast. Cucumbers, and actually some of these other plants, they will have, cucumbers is a vining plant. It grows, it goes. A cucumber plant could probably spread 4 or 5 foot if it's happy. But they do have, and this one happens to be zucchini, but I'm going to show you anyway. This one is a container zucchini. So what it does is it doesn't get as big. Now, the plant doesn't get as big, and this is true with the cucumbers, but the fruit is the same size. So the idea is this makes a great container, or I don't have a lot of space and I want to grow cucumbers and this and this and this and this, and that's fine. If you use a smaller plant, you can plant more because you don't need more varieties, because you don't need as much space. So they do have, they call them bush cucumbers. There's several different kinds of cucumbers, because there's regular cucumbers, there's burpless cucumbers, there's Armenian, which is, a lot of people like it. It's a kind of a wrinkly skinned one that they say isn't as, I don't like cucumbers, so I don't know what they say. It isn't as bitter as some of the others. So there's a bunch of different kind of cucumbers. Try some if you haven't, you like them, try some different varieties and see if there's one you really, really like on that. Keep your cucumbers, all your plants, keep them fairly well watered, especially during the bloom process, because that way you'll get the fruit to set better, and then you get the fruit to set better, you have more, you have bigger on that. So cucumbers, okay. Next, let's talk about herbs, and I'm going to really kind of narrow it down to basil. Basil is one, we sell a boatload of basil. Now, basil likes it warm. There is no sense of planting it at least until Mother's Day, and it'd probably be better to wait a little bit beyond that. But it likes it warm. There's a bunch of different varieties of basil. There's Thai basil, there's purple basil, there's globe basil, there's all different flavors. So when it's warm, if it starts to bloom, pinch the blooms off, because you want the foliage. You don't want it to bloom, because once a lot of these plants that you're doing the foliage, when they start to bloom, then they get bitter. They get hard, or say. Tough, and they're just not as good eating as if they're a fresh, tender, and young plant. So, and you can sow basil from seed, or you can also do plants. A lot of the weird ones you'll find plants with, you won't necessarily find the seed on that. So, but remember, they like it warm. Be patient with them. Okay, herbs. The next thing is going to be melons, and that is watermelon, cantaloupe. It could be squash too, but I'm going to talk watermelon, cantaloupe, but basically. There's tons of varieties. They really don't have, they have, on watermelon, they have some small melons. The melons aren't as big, kind of like, I think they call them refrigerator size. They're good for 1 or 2 people. But most of that, you need space for those. They take up a lot of acreage on that. And so, again, plant them from seed. You can hill them or you can plant them direct. You will find that the melons, actually just about everything we're talking about, maybe except green beans, you can find it, like we'll have them at the garden center with plants. So if you just wanted 1 or 2, you could get that. Now, if you decide you want a container zucchini, for example, and we won't have that in a plant. So you can buy the seed. Now, I want to do 2 zucchinis. Look at all this seed. Seal it up, put it in a baggie, a Ziploc, or put it in a Tupperware thing and stick it in the refrigerator, and it'll be fine till next year. You can hold seed over like that. You want it in the refrigerator. The seed has a little bit of moisture in it, and if that moisture dries out, then the seed is dead. So you put it in the refrigerator so it doesn't dry out. And you can have, it depends on the plant, it depends on the care, but you can have seed come up a year from now, or sometimes you can get it to come up for 4, 5, 6 years beyond when you first bought it. So sometimes you may want to buy a pack because overall that's a little bit cheaper. But you'll want it, unless you're a certain variety you want, I'm going to say get seed, just plant it. It's going to come up really quickly. Give it a chance. A little tip on melons, squash, cucumbers. The first flower that blooms is male, so you will not get fruit off of it. It'll bloom and you'll say, what's wrong with it? It's not putting on cucumbers. So just be patient. The first ones are male, and then you get the female flowers, and then you'll start getting fruit on that. So just a little tip to again, be patient. Mother Nature doesn't do things in a hurry sometimes. So the next thing we're talking about is peppers. Peppers are a lot like tomatoes, but we have a special, we're not talking about tomatoes because we have a whole workshop on tomatoes. So peppers like it hot, and they like it even warmer than tomatoes. So peppers and tomatoes, I wouldn't even think about planting until Mother's Day, at least. And if you plant them later, you're still fine. Don't worry about it. Sometimes, okay, I don't plant mine until Memorial Day, and I'm not that far behind the ones you planted early because the soil's warm, they just take off and go. They're in a raised bed, so it's a little bit elevated, so that soil is super warm, it's good soil, and I have tomatoes about 1 week after you do. So, and then I don't have to worry about frost. So be patient, again, on that. But peppers you plant, you can do, again, seeds. If you do seeds, you should be doing them inside to get them started so you get a head start. Planting them in the direct seeding in the garden is going to take too long for them to come up, get going, expect them to produce, and then have enough time of summer left on that. So do your plants. There's tons. There's hot peppers. There's mild peppers. There's red peppers. There's yellow peppers. There's green peppers. There's a huge assortment of peppers. So it's, pick out what you want. Plant them at the same depth they are in the landscape or in the pot, and then put them in the garden. You're ready to go. Next one is okra. I think I did my alphabet wrong, but we'll talk about okra. Okra likes, again, warm weather. You can do them from seed, you can do them from plants. They can almost be trees. I would suggest getting what they call spineless because they have a tendency to be kind of, they're not thorny, but they hurt on that. The key, okra is a very beautiful plant on that. It gets up, it has a yellow bloom that's about this big, really showy. But when it starts to put on the pods, you need to probably harvest every day because if they get very big, they get really hard and bitter, so they're not that great. So, but they're a great, awesome plant, and some people will use them as an ornamental too. On that, you can do plants. There's some that have a reddish foliage. I don't know what the name of it is though. But and there's some that have a green foliage. But again, they like it really, really warm. When they're done at the end of the year, they're almost a tree. You almost have to take loppers and cut them down because they've gotten so big. Squash. There's a bunch of types of squash. You've got like zucchini, you've got the crooknecks, you've got the, pumpkins are actually a squash. You've got spaghetti squash, you've got butternut. So there's a bunch of different kinds of squash. Same thing, you can buy plants. You can do seed very easily. I don't like to talk about bugs, but the only bug I'll probably talk about is the squash bug, which you will have on that. You may not have it the first year you plant because they don't know where you're at, but you will have them, and it's just a matter, I don't care what you use, just keep on it on that. You'll have some. I kind of do it with the idea that I'm hurry up, going to get some squash, and then say, okay, they're yours, bugs. And then when they cover the plant, I usually pull it up on trash day and put it in the bag and take it to the corner so they'll pick it up quickly and hopefully take all the bugs with me. I know I won't get all of them, but I'll get a lot of them that way. And then I don't plant for 2 or 3 more years. So, but squash are, like I say, there are some container ones, and there's a bunch, there's zucchini comes in a bunch of different, just it alone. There's green, there's yellow, there's striped. So there's a lot of different kinds of squash, and there's a tons of way to use them. I'm not a cook, so I'm going to stay out of that. All of these plants you can take, the better the plant's going to do, the better the plant does, the better crop you get. So even though you have really, really good soil, and with time you will, I would suggest fertilizing. Okay, you can use a bunch of different types. This one I like. I actually put this underneath the plants when I plant it. On my tomato, I'll put it down 4 or 6 inches below the tomato. I would put it down probably 2 to 4 inches below some of the other plants. The idea is the plant gets started and gets going, and then the roots go down into the zone where the fertilizer is, and it can utilize it. On your tomatoes, particularly peppers, are the same way. What you want to do is you want them to get established and start to bloom before they start taking up a lot of fertilizer, because what happens is they'll grow, and you really want fruit, and so they need to bloom. And so if they're busy growing, they won't bloom. So put it down below, it depends on the plant, but anywhere from 2 to 4, 6 inches below it. That's one way to do it. This is a nice one. It lasts 4 to 6 months. This is another one that you can top dress with. You can put this in the hole the same way. This one you can top dress with. You do it once a month. On both of them, how much you use will depend upon, it'll tell you. This one will say, let's see. Okay, tomatoes, vegetables, 2 tablespoons per 4 square foot. So it kind of tells you. This one will say tomatoes, pepper, 1/2 cup per plant. So it gives you directions on how much to use. And that's excellent for once it gets going. The root stimulator you want to use when you've set out the plants. Don't use it on the seed. They don't have any roots. It's not going to work that well on seeds. But on plants, it's going to do very well. If you take it out of a pot, you use it on your plant, whether it's a vegetable, a tree, shrub. I'm kind of getting off. But anytime you plant, you want to use the root stimulator. What it does is work on the root system, get it going. You get the root system going, then the top's going to take off and follow suit, and that's what you want. You got a good root system, it can grow a bigger top, it can have more blooms, it has more fruit on that. So there's a lot more. Remember that there's books written on this, so I'm not going to be able to talk about it for the whole time, but hopefully this helps. If you've got some questions, stop in, give us a call, email us, and we'll be glad to help you, and we can answer any questions that you have, not just on your vegetables but other things too. Thanks for listening.